The territory that today makes up South Africa wasn't always a majority black country. Large parts of the country were historically exclusively European. In fact, it was only due to British colonial policies in the early 1900s, which were opposed by both the white Afrikaners as well as most of the rural black tribes, that triggered one of the biggest demographic shifts in Southern African history, transforming the region into a majority black country within just a few decades. Very little has been said of the demographic transformation that took place in South Africa at the start of the 20th century. Without thoroughly studying history, people often tend to assume that the status quo has always been in place forever. Take North Africa, for example. Today it is largely populated by Berber and Arab peoples, and it has been the case for many centuries. But this wasn't always the case. In fact, for many centuries, most of North Africa was inhabited by Caucasoid Punic peoples, who founded cities like ancient Carthage, which was the capital of the entire region of North Africa for nearly a millennium. In fact, Carthage was known as the capital of Africa by the Latinic peoples. The Punic people, in fact, researchers have found were genetically very much European, and the very famous church father, St. Augustine, also came from this Caucasian North African group. It would only be from the early Middle Ages onwards that North Africa would be demographically replaced and transformed and effectively become part of the Islamic world. In Southern Africa, a similar dynamic played out over the past 400 years. Today, more than 80% of the population of South Africa and over 95% of the populations in other Southern African countries are black. But this wasn't historically the case. Stay tuned, because in today's video, I will show how the demographic transformations of South Africa occurred very recently. In 1685, more than 3 decades after the arrival of Europeans at the Cape and the establishment of the first trading post of the United East Indian Company, the governor of the Cape Colony, Mr. Simon van der Stel, led an expedition northwards to roughly the area where the town of Springbok is located today. That is almost the border of present-day Namibia, previously known as Southwest Africa. Despite traveling more than 500 kilometers to the north, they never encountered any black African peoples, only sporadic Khoisan families who themselves had entered the region relatively recently after being violently displaced from the more fertile eastern parts of Africa by the wave of black migrations coming from the north at the time. Van der Stel and his men from the Cape Colony certainly knew that there must have been black tribes starting somewhere living to their north, but despite their very long journey, they were unable to find any. The very first time the Dutch at the Cape Colony made large-scale contact with any black African tribes was more than a century after their arrival here, when the Dutch Afrikaner farmers, known today as the Vryburgers, moved into what is today known as the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. Here in the Eastern Cape, they first encountered Xhosa settlements in the vicinity of the Fish River, near what is today known as the city of East London. The Xhosas had also very recently moved into the area from the northeast, after being displaced by other Nguni tribes. Even a century after that, in 1880, when the Orange Free State Republic conducted its first census, it found that around half the population of this republic, which constituted the lion's share of what is today Central South Africa, were white. It must also be kept in mind that at the time most of the black people in the Free State lived much closer to the border of what is now known as Natal and Lesotho, which means that at the time, the very western half of this republic, which also included its capital of Bloemfontein, was virtually solely populated by Dutch people and other peoples of European extraction. Furthermore, it must also be kept in mind that the very reason the census was called in the first place was because of the fact that black peoples were starting to immigrate into this republic en masse, and estimates from previous years show that for the first 25 years of its existence, Caucasians constituted the vast majority of the population of the Orange Free State Republic. Indeed, when the Voortrekkers first moved into and settled north of the Orange River in what is today known as the Free State, which was earlier in the 19th century, they encountered not a single black tribe at all. This was in part because of the genocide conducted by the Zulus under the leadership of King Shaka, and in part because of an immense drought in the region between 1835 and 1837. The few black tribes who had lived there previously migrated back to the fertile lands in the east. The same was true for large parts of the Transvaal, especially the area now known as Gauteng, and of course also for the Western Cape. In the 1904 census of Cape Town, for example, it was noted that 57% of the entire municipality's population was white. The other were mostly colored people, descendants from the Malay slaves that were brought in previously by the Dutch East India Company. This includes both the city proper as well as the surrounding areas. And believe it or not, at the time even Pretoria's demographics looked similar to that of Cape Town. In 1904, the census in the Transvaal capital, even after the British had conquered the Boer republics and opened the borders to the black homelands, the entire city of Pretoria's total population, including all of the suburbs and outskirts, was still overwhelmingly white Afrikaners. While some smaller black tribes had lived in the north of what is today known as the Limpopo province and in the northwest province south of what is today known as Botswana, black people never historically lived in Gauteng nor in the Western Cape. So when did all this change? Well, after the Anglo-Boer War, the British united all of the different colonies and tribal homelands under one colonial European banner. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was formed to consolidate 13 different political entities under one British rule, including former colonies, tribal lands, and 2 Boer republics. This unification initiated a period of mass migration, especially from the homelands in the eastern and northeastern parts of what constituted the new country of South Africa, to the economic hub of this new colonial construct, the area in what we now know as Witwatersrand. It was in particular one policy of the British government implemented at the start of the 20th century, which would demographically transform the entire heartland of South Africa. This was the poll tax. The poll tax, also known as hot tax, was a new tax that the colonial government implemented after the Anglo-Boer War and which they levied on African men. This new tax forced them to pay their taxes using money or cash, which at the time was something foreign to black tribes in this region. You see, before the hot tax, most African communities lived in a mixed cattle and subsistence economy where cash was optional but not essential. But once the British colonial government announced that every adult African man now owed a fixed cash tax each year, everything changed. You couldn't pay it with cattle. You couldn't pay it with grain. You couldn't pay it with labor. It had to be money. The legal tender of this colonial state. And because almost nobody in the tribal homelands earned cash or used it as any legal tender, many men were suddenly forced to leave the homelands, travel to the mines in the Witwatersrand and the historically Afrikaner Boer areas, and worked long contracts simply to earn coins so that they could pay the tax to the British. Poll tax didn't just raise the revenue of the country, it forced an entire population to plug itself into the cash economy, turning rural farmers and subsistence farmers in traditionally black homelands into migrant laborers in traditionally white Boer Afrikaner cities, and gradually making the mines and colonial industries dependent on steady flow of cheap black labor from the homelands. In Zululand in 1906, there was even a rebellion by the Zulu people against the poll tax. This rebellion, known as the Bambata Rebellion, was the result of the Zulu people recognizing the poll tax for what it was, a deliberate attempt to destroy their independence by forcing them into migrant labor on white-owned properties and mines in white-owned areas. But the rebellion was soon crushed, and so under British colonial rule, a century of mass migration into the former Boer republics was initiated. And this was later followed by mass migration into the Western Cape that we are still seeing today. On top of the immigration from the black homelands, black people from other British colonies to the north also increasingly started migrating into South Africa or the Union of South Africa, especially under apartheid. People from countries like Nyasaland, Northern Rhodesia, today known as Malawi and Zambia, Mozambique, Botswana, Angola, everywhere started pouring into apartheid South Africa. And so within a few short decades, the demographic writing was ultimately on the wall for this country. One can only imagine what this part of the world would have looked like if it had not been for the British defeating the Boer republics and establishing colonial rule over the entire region. The demographics of the Southern African Commonwealth would have looked entirely different today. And while speculation about what could have been or what it might have been is an interesting exercise, the point of this video is to highlight that the narrative that the territories that today constitute South Africa somehow historically all belong to black people is completely and utterly false in every sense of the word. South Africa as a single country is a British colonial construct, and no single people group can claim to be indigenous to the area as a whole, or to own or to be the true owners of this area as a whole. The Caucasian descendants of European nations such as the Dutch and the British have just as much right to be here as any other tribe. In fact, our ancestors and we have been in Southern Africa much longer than most black tribes in this country today. Moreover, Afrikaners who historically brought the very art of republican politics to this region, the very first architects of the Republic of South Africa, once again deserve a national republic of our own. We have a right to be liberated from the tyranny of the ANC, and our right to self-determination is enshrined in the Constitution for the very good reason. We shall never allow anyone to tell us that we as a people do not belong on the soil. In a recent video, we highlighted the hypocrisy of the ANC in supporting independence for countries like Western Sahara from Morocco in the name of anti-colonialism, while opposing, for example, Western Cape independence based on their adherence to the very borders established by British colonialists. Check out this report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right here. And support the work that we are doing here at the Willem Petsche Group by becoming a paid member. Only with your help can we make these videos to change the hearts and minds of people. Simply follow the easy steps on the banner underneath me. Goodbye and God bless.